Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the TraderMerlin Show. It is your Wednesday edition, the final trading day of May. We'll run through those numbers on this program, run through all the top 7 markets out there. Of course, the topic du jour with the markets overall was debt ceiling. Of course, Sunday night, there was the talk about them having reached an agreement, and we didn't get a lot of clarity on what that was, just talking that maybe they got to some agreement. Now, all of a sudden, that's getting pushed through. There's going to be a vote tonight. I think it's supposed to happen at 8:30 tonight. So what's 5:30 here, California? I'm not exactly sure when the vote happens, but we should get the vote, which would pass through most likely the first hurdle for the debt ceiling. And I thought, well, why not talk about that a little bit just so we can see what's in it, maybe what it impacts or how it's going to impact our markets. I know I don't want to go too political down this aisle or say I like this part or hate this part. Just simply hear the facts presented. Now, this was spurred from a question. Tim says, what are your thoughts about the debt ceiling deal? I'm just glad it's getting done. Glad to see that there's something happening. And I read through as much as I could of it. I didn't have a full copy of it, so I had to deal through kind of Cliff Note versions from the debt ceiling. And, you know, I think that I feel like they're being pressured into making this deal. I don't think that either side is really getting what they want. So I took a whole bunch of notes here. So I'll run through some of these just so we have clarity. With regards to non-defense spending, right? So defense spending, you have defense spending, and then you have non-defense spending. They're going to keep non-defense spending flat for all of 2024 and a 1% increase in 2025. So this is the part where I think it's kind of interesting. You have defense, which we already have by far the largest military in the world. And not to take anything away from the military, but I think it's probably big enough to solve our problems that we have at this moment in time. We could probably even scale back and still have the largest military in the world by a large margin. Not to offend any military people out there, but we have a pretty large military. So you have military and then you have non-military spending. That non-military spending are the things, the services, the aspects of America that those who are not fighting the front lines for the military get to enjoy. So you're talking national parks, you're talking different endowment funds and things like that. No increase in spending whatsoever there until 2025, where we move up 1%. However, defense spending will increase by 3%. So thought that was kind of interesting. I would have imagined that we would have actually gone more towards let's build up infrastructure and services in America where we already have enough with defense. But in defense is going to increase by 3%. I thought that Don Messina says, no way, they're catching up. Of course they are. Of course they are. China has more people. I think I remember reading some statistic like China has more people in college than the United States has citizens. I thought that was a weird stat, something like that, or getting their master's degree or some crazy statistic. Anyway, we still are the largest one, and hopefully we won't need to utilize the full force of our military might in any conflict or situation. But we continually spend on military, and that's fine. What was it? One of the favorite ones that I saw a bunch of quotes from different senators out there, and Representative Roy said, "It's a giant turd sandwich," which I thought was very, very eloquent coming from our elected officials. Laurie says, "I hope they finally do their job and pass something this week." I think that they will. Don't you have to pass it before you know what's in it? Well, there's a lot of talk about it, and a lot of times you can see the pre-draft of it because obviously the bill has to be presented, and then we can vote on it, or the House of Representatives will be the first ones to vote on that, and then if that's done, then it will go to the Senate. Now, it's expected to pass the House of Representatives, which I believe the Republicans control 222 to 213, so it should go through since it sounds like McCarthy is on board and saying this is going to pass. It's going to be signed into law. So once it passes the House of Representatives, then it'll go over to the Senate, which the Democrats control 51 to 49, and we'll see if it passes through there. But even Biden is saying that this should pass. Let's get it done. So one of the things that I liked that I saw in there, and this is definitely gonna be a touchy subject, so I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it dealt with there are individuals who are getting food assistance, right? So getting government food. They're saying that if you're an able-bodied worker, then you have to meet certain work requirements. Basically, instead of just sitting around and collecting this stuff from the government for free, you can be put to work and do something to earn that. I like that. I think that, unless you are disabled or cannot work to perform those tasks, you shouldn't just be given something for free, right? We shouldn't just become a lazy country where, I can sit there, do nothing, and I get paid, whether that's stimulus or food or welfare checks. If you can work or do something productive, then you should be able to earn that, and the government would help you there. So that was an interesting one that was in there. Some things that were not in there, which I was kind of surprised: no student debt relief or loan relief. That was one of Biden's major talking points. That's not in there. No tax hikes. Again, the Democrats saying tax the rich, tax the rich. None of that apparently is in there. And the last one was during the COVID, when they passed all these bills very quickly, by the way, very quickly without a lot of fanfare, just because they had to get this stuff passed and make America happy again. There was a lot of stuff in there regarding clean air and clean energy. And the Republicans are really fighting to remove some of that clean energy piece. None of that got touched. So there's certainly some wins and some losses in here. Bottom line is this will kick the can down the road, not raise that debt ceiling for another 2 years. So, okay, fine, great. We'll have to deal with this issue in 2025 after the election in 2024. So all in all, I think that, all in all sounds good. No more spending, kind of curbing the spending going forward, making some cuts along the way. Great. What does it mean for our markets? I think it's actually optimism for our markets. And it was kind of surprising to see how the markets performed today, because if we do get this signed and it doesn't get passed into law, it's just a relief knowing that we're not going to have this dark cloud of a government shutdown and a default looming over the financial markets. So all in all, that was a decent piece. Oh yeah, I didn't even show you the graphic for today. I tried to show a graphic of someone just sitting around waiting and waiting. We will never really deal with it. Are we talking about the debt overall, Margaret? We'll never really deal with all the debt. We'll never deal with it. I mean, in my lifetime, there's no way we will look back. And I can almost guarantee, I don't guarantee anything. A couple things I guarantee. I guarantee that if you don't have a written, documented trading plan, that you'll most likely blow your account and lose your money over time. Guarantee it. I guarantee it over time. It's just going to happen. You'll blow your account, you'll lose your money if you don't have a plan. Number two is there is absolutely no way on this great green earth that the United States will be debt-free in my lifetime. It's just not going to happen. The debt is the mechanism that allows America to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, so it'll never happen. What did Tom say? I think they said a turd sandwich is easier to consume if you have more bread. Well, I don't believe that was what he said all around, but I just saw the clip where he called it a turd sandwich. I thought it was pretty funny. Yeah, that's true. And I guarantee death as well at some point. Taxes, no. You can get around taxes. Just ask most of the big publicly traded companies or some high-ranking, informed people can get around taxes. You can't get around that, but still we're figuring out how to cheat this whole death thing. That one's just going to elude me forever. Dave says, taxing the rich is pointless. They use C Corps and lower their, adjusted gross income. Tax reform for corporations would be more efficient, but after an audit government spending for. So to that point, I agree with you. As soon as you say we'll tax the rich, then what will happen is the rich they'll find ways around it. And not that they're doing anything illegal. They're just utilizing the existing tax code and moving things around and hiding it in a little bit of a shell game. And that's, again, how they're going to avoid taxes. And unfortunately, that's what's happening right now. And if those rules change towards tax the rich, then they will just simply shuffle things around because they've got the money to get great lawyers and understand all this stuff, where I don't understand the complexities of shell corporations and offshore bank accounts. That's a little bit beyond my capacity. However, when you have a team of lawyers that can do that for you, now all of a sudden, instead of paying millions in taxes, you don't. By the way, you know who has paid more taxes in 1 year than anybody in the history of mankind? You would think that it would be not this individual. You would think that he would actually be working to get around it. But the individual has spent more money in taxes in 1 year than anybody else in the history of the planet is Elon Musk. Kind of interesting. Okay. Saba says, so what's the answer? I think I need the question there. Where's Saba? Did you ask a question, Saba? I didn't see it. Anyway, ask me that question again. Yeah, Tom got it right. Elon. I respect him for doing that because, he could go around it and find ways to pay significantly lower taxes. And I think that no, not Buffett. Maybe the corporation, but as an individual, Elon Musk has paid the most. All right, so yeah, at this point, we're just playing this waiting game. Again, the vote will be tonight. My guess is that the vote in front of the House of Representatives will pass tonight because that is Republican controlled. It sounds like McCarthy's on board. Let's do it. Then when we get to the Senate, from what I've been reading, it sounds like there's a lot more contentiousness there. And a lot of people saying, not voting for this and not voting for that. I want this in there. And we'll never have the perfect deal. Unfortunately, we'll never have the perfect solution. But I think that for you and me, as the taxpayers, I don't expect there to be a perfect deal. Are we going to get everything we want? It's like Christmas morning. You never get everything you want. What you hope is that when you open up all those presents, there's one present there you're like, yeah, so stoked I got my Red Ryder BB gun, right? With this, I think that for me, I'm just stoked that we don't get a debt default. And I know it'll happen at some point in time. We will default on our debt. It's just at a certain point, we cannot continue to rack up debt like this. But it's not going to happen it shouldn't happen between now and 2025, which for me is a giant win. The student relief, the tax hikes, the clean energy. I look at it as it is what it is, and I'll just deal with these things as they come my way. Obviously, I'll never have the perfect solution for me or for you. I know many of you. I don't think they haven't voted on it, or did they vote already? I thought the vote was later tonight. Pretty sure, William, that the vote is later tonight. I thought it said 8:30, which I'm assuming would be 5:30 California time. It was going to happen tonight. With regards to paying off the government debt, the student loan debt, or not student loan debt, our government debt, Thomasina, I will say never. In that case, I will say we will never pay off that debt. The only way would be is if we default, and that's not really paying off the debt, is it? Yeah, there you go. That's what I thought, Big Eb. The test vote, or just saying if they would vote one way or another, and it looks like it will pass. But again, the official vote should be later tonight. Student loan money income starting back up in 60 days. Correct. So, you are having to pay back student loans. There was I think there was a pause on that. Now that's coming back into effect. So you'll have to start paying those student loans again. In regards to the rich evading taxes and the middle class weakening, the answer to that is you find ways to prevent the loopholes. So our tax code, I would argue that our tax code needs to be overhauled. It's hundreds and hundreds of pages of just tax code that anybody who's a shrewd lawyer can probably find ways around that tax code. It should be much more simplified so that everybody and anybody can understand it. Of course, this not making a political show here. I don't want that to happen. But the tax code certainly needs to be overhauled. And a lot of these little loopholes could be removed. Now, to the point, I believe it was Dave saying earlier, what happens is they start these corporations, a C corporation, S corporation, move offshore, whatever. The problem with that is if you go after a corporation, you say, okay, you have to pay, X amount of taxes. If that becomes too burdensome, then what happens, these corporations just will simply move overseas and go to some other tax favorable country, as we've seen happen with other companies in the United States in the past. And to me, that's a problem. So you got to find that happy medium where you can push corporations enough and tax them enough, but still not push them far enough to jump overseas and then take their business elsewhere. You look what's happening with Coinbase, for example. The government's going after Coinbase aggressively, or not the government, the SEC is going after Coinbase, and Coinbase just said, you know what? Screw you, we'll go to a different country. We'll go somewhere else, and that's kind of surprising to see Coinbase make that kind of move, but it also just shows you that companies have choices. And in this case, they're not going after Coinbase for taxation. It's just regulatory stuff, right? Comply with our regulations and you can stay. And then like, well, what are the regulations? We don't know. We're going to sue you. It's like, well, wait a minute. This is confusing. But if you start going after corporations, like let's say, I don't know, just pick Tesla. You pick Tesla and you go after them and say, hey, we're going to raise your corporate taxes X%. And Elon Musk is going to look at the numbers and go, yeah, that's not going to work for us. We'll go right across the border into Mexico. They'll give me some preferential tax treatment. They'll give me all kinds of subsidies to set up my factories there because they want the business. So you made the mistake there. So just don't push them out. It would be my point I'm making there. Long-winded, of course. All right. Let's see. Okay, is that on? Yeah, simpler tax code would be just so much easier. It'd be great. They're leaving California for that reason? Yep. Yeah, they're leaving California because I think right now, my fellow Californians may agree with this or not, but I look at what's happening in San Francisco and I am just absolutely appalled. San Francisco was one of my favorite cities in the world. I love San Francisco. I have not physically been in San Francisco in quite some time, but just watching what's going on, seeing a lot of these businesses say, "I've had enough." I can literally have a flash mob walk into my store, they steal everything, and I can't even call the police because the items they stole are under $900. That's a bunch of crap. I would tell you this, that if I was a store owner in San Francisco, apparently you can't prosecute for items under, I think it's $900 or $1,000. Okay, great. Every item in my store would be $1,000 or more. Every item. I don't care if it's a pack of gum, it'd be $1,000. But today, there's coupons at the front door, so you can now get that gum for 99 cents. And if that's my store and you come in there and you're robbing it in a big group of people just stealing, I'm taking baseball bats and I'm swinging at every single person I can get at. I might even start shooting some people. You are robbing me. I should be able to stand ground and protect my property. Anyway, Singapore does have the tax form on a postcard. Wow, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, how many different forms? You got to know that. We all know the 1040, but man, there's so many other different forms. Anyway, we're going off topic today. Tom says corporations pay the unseen half of Social Security, so at the minimum, they pay 7.51%. Many collect sales tax, pay property taxes, handle all of it. Yep. Correct. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a lot of taxes being paid there, and if you keep pushing it up, again, Tom, I think you'd agree, what's going to happen? They'll go, you know what, I've had enough. I'll go somewhere else, right? I'll go to Tijuana. I'll go to right across the border. Everyone's going to be happy there, and job creation, and I get perks. Just break them from $900 worth of... Oh, boy. All right, so let me move on to a couple of different questions. I'm going to dive through the numbers here of our overall market just so I can get this out of the way. So for the month of May, it was kind of an interesting month. There was a lot of volatility out there. What I'll do is I'm going to bring up the monthly candles, and we'll go one by one up the list. So the worst performer out there, and just out of curiosity, who do you think's the worst performer? We already know who's the best performer, right? It's no surprise the NASDAQ is going to be the number one. It's just been screaming to the upside. But just curious, without looking at it, out of our top seven, which is gold, crude oil, the Russell, the Dow, the S&P, Bitcoin, and NASDAQ, who do you think is the best performing for the month of May? Oh, sorry, worst performing. And while I wait for you to type that one in, here it is. The worst performer for the month of May is crude oil, down 11.83%. So I'll bring up the CL chart here. Now Russell's mid-pack. Here is your crude oil chart, and you can see where I've taken the line from. I clicked on the closing price of last month to the closing price of this month, and that line is showing 11.83% slide. Best performer Bud puts. Yeah, my put options I sold on Bud are now underwater, but that's okay. I'm not worrying about it. So worst performer, crude oil down 11.83% for the month and looking pretty ugly. But, we do have this line here that I've had in place for a while, right around 62 and a quarter. And that might be our next logical target. We're currently at $68.09 for crude oil. That's down 1.97% on the day. All right, moving to our sixth place finisher. Oop, I did two at once. Bitcoin is the next greatest loser. A little disappointed here. I was kind of... I didn't really want to see this break down below 26,666, but here's your Bitcoin price chart. It's funny because it doesn't really look that bad, right? You got this little red candle here, but when you look at the actual percentage moves on a monthly, click on that bad boy, 7.8% slide from the close of April to the end of May. So that is your second worst performer is Bitcoin. Technically on a monthly chart, what do we see here? Not much. Right, just looks like a little bit of a pullback. It's really, you need to dive down into, let's say, the daily time frame to really see what's been happening. And here you can see on the daily, let me get rid of some lines, that we did break down below that 26,666, which was my number, and looked great yesterday, and then giving some of it back. So feels like we're still in a slightly bearish cycle here for Bitcoin at present moment. Now, moving on to your fifth place. We have the Dow Jones Industrial Average was down 3.38% for the month. The Dow, technically, at least for the past 30 days, well, I'll call it 45 days really, has been on a nice little downtrend. Lower lows, lower highs, just shrinking lower and lower. I don't really see anything that's going to cause that trend to change at this point. Maybe the debt ceiling thing gets everyone all fired up and they jump back in the markets and it roars, but it just feels like it's slowly drifting lower. When I zoom out a little bit, that 32,000 level does become a very real reality for it to slightly to drift down lower. Big F says, I expect the passing of the debt ceiling will lift my oil and XLE options. Let them expire worthless Friday. I sold the 75 June 2 puts. So, but you sold the 75s? So you think it's going to jump back up and get above 75 by Friday? I don't know about that. I don't think that's going to happen. Personally, I think that's a little bit too high. If you're looking at the straight CL, you go to 75 up here. Sorry, XLE. Okay, thank you. I just can't read, Big M. I just can't read. I think I have XLE at 75 as well. So I like it. I don't think you're going to get there by Friday. And again, the reason I did those 75s is because it's this low point right here. I went just slightly below it. I think we're okay with that one. But you did the June 2nd, so you're doing Friday. I have actually, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think mine's out to the 16th. So I actually have June 16th, if I remember correctly. I have to look at my accounts. But I have the 75s as well, and I think we're going to be fine there. I think you're good on that XLE at 75, certainly by Friday. I mean, right now, it's at 76.59. It'd have to drop about another $1.50 by Friday. So you've got Thursday, Friday, 2 days for it to drop another 2%. I mean, it could happen, but I think you'll see it bottom out here before then. Hope you collected some good premium on that one as well. All right, so that was your Dow Jones, down 3.38%. Next one on our list, gold. Oh, a little frustrating what I've been witnessing with gold and with silver. Gold at least has had a bounce for the past couple of days, but technically, I'm going to get this stuff off here. Not much has changed, right? It still looks like you're in an uptrend from those October lows, a little bit of pullback and a slight bounce. So what I'm really waiting for to happen here with gold is either it's going to start heading back down and break some lows here, which is at 1936, it gets below that, or it will continue its strength that it's had since October and rally up and start breaking these highs, and we see it hit 2080 and possibly even higher from that. That's what I'm anticipating is the move to the upside here, but that little drift down we saw from pretty much majority of the month of May has not been very optimistic for me. And here's SLV as well, which has a much worse looking picture. Again, I have the 22s. I'm long from 22 on several thousand shares of this, so underwater right now, but been collecting premium. So I actually think I'm positive now based off of where current price is at 21.66. So, all right, let's get out of my trades and move on to, by the way, I did do a nice E-mini trade on the NASDAQ today. That was a nice short. We did break down exactly like we talked about in yesterday's show, but let me look at that in a second. Russell 2000 is your fifth place finisher. The Rut putting in a lousy 0.82% loss. So technically, this is the Tom bar chart, just sideways, trending sideways, looking great. If you're a premium seller, Tom's been loving this one for 4 months straight. March, April, May, just been totally sideways, and especially in this second yellow box we've drawn on here. So hopefully that will continue, and you will do all right with Rut going forward. Yep, the yellow box beauty, right? This one's working like a charm, looking fantastic, especially in this nice condensed range here. But remember, the longer it traverses sideways in this very small yellow box that I have, and so I've got two on the screen, the more likely it's going to have an explosive breakout one way or another. So, it's just like a spring coiling, getting more compressed. People are at this point waiting for it to break out, but so far looking pretty good. No, I didn't short Nvidia, just the Nasdaq futures. I wanted to, Ganesh, but I was like, I just can't do it. It looked a little bit weird this morning when it opened, so I was like, no, I'll leave it alone. Second place finisher for the month of May is, drum roll please, the S&P 500. Now we're positive. The last two indexes are positive here. 0.46% gain for the S&P 500, which the ES will show us here. Still looks good to me. We're in a nice little uptrend, particularly from those October lows. You got higher highs, higher lows. We are at this kind of decision-making point where I thought we'd move higher. I thought we'd challenge the 4280 mark on the S&P futures, but we didn't. We have the last 2 days have been showing some weakness overall. Even though it's up for the month, it showed some weakness today, down 0.58%. And I was kind of anticipating it going up, but I don't know. If it breaks these lows right around 41.15, then we might make the argument that this uptrend that we saw since October is now broken. But right now, I still think that it is intact and working okay. And finally, Your Victor, which with a significant gain compared to all the other indexes, the NASDAQ 100, 7.85% gain for the month. This candle here's the weekly candle. Let me show the monthly. It's just giant. And really, for the past 4 months, the NASDAQ's had 5 months, has had one down month. And it was barely down. Other than that, it's had some giant swings to the upside. And this goes back to our discussion yesterday. From trough to peak, NASDAQ has moved 35% since January. Huge move. So 35% gain for the year for the NASDAQ. All in all, looking very good. When I switch this over to a daily time frame, you can see that strength looking great. Now yesterday we had that shooting star formation. And I didn't catch all the move. I got 44 points out of this move with just one contract, so it wasn't a huge day, $800 or so. But I really wanted this to drift down even lower, and I don't think we're out of the woods yet. NASDAQ 23% year to date. Let's go and look at the charts here. So we go from vertical line to vertical line right there. Here's your January 1st number. That's December 30th. That's the first trading day. We'll go from there. That's the opening price to there, 28. 28% is what I've got now. And you go to the peak, it was up 31%. So there you go, slightly off. But yeah, the numbers I'm showing from the January 3rd open to where we are right now is 28.58%. So all in all, a beautiful run for the NASDAQ for the year. I think I may have actually gone back a little bit further. So double shooting star in Apple. I don't know if that's a pattern, but we'll go with it. Now we can always make up our own patterns. It's funny. Oh, you're doing NQs versus spot. Got it. Double shooting star. Oh yeah, I did not notice that on Apple today. So thanks for pointing that one out, Sava. This is one of those formations where the shooting star would have been a great short today, just to look for today, but we didn't get it. And it formed another shooting star today. So if you are to step back and look at the psychology of price action here, what this tells us with Apple is that for 2 days straight, it's had huge momentum to the upside, but near the tail end, sellers came back and pushed it down and closed near its lows. So in the battle here between buyers and sellers, the winner, even though it's up, the winner's the sellers, because they crushed all those gains and just blasted out of Apple into closing right near its lows. So I think that Apple for tomorrow, which I can't trade because it's in my trading plan, may be another example of shorting opportunity. So how would you trade that? Well, according to my rules, there are below the low of that shooting star candle, but I would stretch it and I would go to the low of yesterday's shooting star, which means if it gets down below 176.57, that's your shorting opportunity. There you go. Nice. Cool one. Now, if you look at NVIDIA, NVIDIA actually gapped down today. So right away, it omits that from me. But one of the rules is if it rallies back up above that blue line. So I know the podcast people can't see this right now. What we have here is the NVIDIA chart. We've got a huge gap up that happened on May 25th, and it's rallied for the next 3 days. On May 30th, had a great shooting star formation with a fairly long tail. And the plan was if it opens up above the bottom of yesterday, which is 399.46, if it opens above that and then starts to travel below it, that's the shorting opportunity. If you look at the way it traded today, it gapped down, then rallied back up above 399.46, and then came back down. So you can take that trade even though it gapped down lower. You have to wait for it to rally back up. And here is the 15-minute of that so you can see kind of what happened. You can see the opening 15 minutes, it gapped down, it shot up, and then about 6:45, it went above 399.46 and then sold off. So that one I did not make, but did on the NQs. And the NQs right on the open gapped lower than my trigger line and then ripped up. And then it came screaming back down, so I pulled the trigger on it and didn't get everything I wanted, but got about, let's say, 44 points on it. So I'll take that any day. Only one contract. I was just a little too apprehensive to go in more. Bearish evening star. Well, let me go back to the daily here. Are you talking on the NASDAQ? I mean, technically, where the real body is on this candle that formed yesterday for the NASDAQ, that kind of dictates what pattern it is. And you notice that the real body from yesterday, let me just zoom in and make it the only candle you see on the right edge. If you look at that, that's not technically a shooting star. The closing body is relatively high up. So yes, some people would, I would actually say this on this one as well. You could call this almost a bearish evening star on NVIDIA because it's got a bottoming tail, it's got a topping tail. I just called it in the hammer category. I know, I'll look at NVIDIA just a sec. But this one also had one. Not sure which candle you mean, Sava. Like today, I don't put much emphasis on the candle today, but the one yesterday, I would call that a shooting star, just because it closed so low in its range, right? And naming conventions here, I find kind of annoying. It's just really, if you see it, how are you going to trade it, right? So my rules on the shooting star are, if it opens up above that dashed blue line, which is the low of yesterday on NVIDIA, there's your short price point, right? That's easy. Let's see. I had a couple questions. There was thoughts on the debt ceiling deal. Oh, good one from KF. So KF always asks questions on the YouTube channel. Great. And for those of you who might be new, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Click the little subscribe button. Click the bell so you're notified when we do these, which is going to be 2 p.m., just about 2 p.m. every single day, Monday through Friday, unless I'm lazy or have something going on where I can't make it. But KF always posts on the YouTube video, so thank you, KF, for that. And others that do that, I love reading those comments down below. His question is an interesting one, and it's a total change of topic here, guys. He says, what do you think about Craig Wright, the man who claims to be Satoshi Nakamoto? Could that be true? Could it be true? Yes, it could be true. Do I believe that it's true? No. I believe this guy is an ass clown. I believe he's a total charlatan. I believe he's lying through his teeth. He doesn't have any real hard evidence. His cases have been being dismissed all over the place. I believe he's an absolute annoyance to the industry. And it's embarrassing that someone like that exists. And here's how you would be able to tell. If I was to tell you that I was Satoshi Nakamoto, okay, you just have to take it as face value. So I am Satoshi Nakamoto. There's one way to prove it, and it's so simple. It's incredibly easy to prove it. There are wallets, addresses that exist for Bitcoin that are tied to Satoshi Nakamoto, the guy who started Bitcoin, or guy or entity or government, whatever you want to call it, or gal, doesn't matter. So Craig Wright says he started Bitcoin and he created it. Okay, great. So there's over 1 million Bitcoin that are tied to Satoshi Nakamoto that have not moved. So if I told you that I was Craig Wright, you should just ask me one simple question. Say, okay, if you are Satoshi Nakamoto, then all I ask you for you to do is access that account and send one Satoshi, 0.000000001 Bitcoin. It's less than 4/100ths of a penny. Just move one little piece, right? Just call one tiny little piece of it, and if that moves, then hey, you're Satoshi. Because that's the only empirical, unless you can show me on your computer all the work that you did to make Bitcoin, all the original white paper documents, he doesn't have any of that stuff. He's just claimed that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. Blows my mind. So no, I don't think he is a Satoshi Nakamoto. I believe that he is trying to capitalize on the notoriety, and he's created his other cryptocurrency, which I think was Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, all that garbage. I think he's a clown. I wish that somebody would just put him out of the industry. He just doesn't belong there. You know, he could say that he forgot his password. That's okay. But if you forgot the password, that's one thing. But then show me the computer that you wrote the white paper on. Show me the original file. I mean, I have files that I wrote from college still, and I can show you the original file. It'll have my name in the meta tag. So he is an absolute clown. He's an absolute clown. It was me, Satoshi Bara, but I found my key. There you go. Hey, if you did, then just send some. All you have to do is move one little fragment of that Bitcoin, and the entire world and community would go, okay, you have to be Satoshi Nakamoto because you're the one who accessed the accounts, right? Without that private key, nobody can ever touch it. So KF, no, I don't think that he is the guy that invented Bitcoin. There's a lot of other people out there like Dan Held who, there are people who have gone through and ran the syntax, the words that he uses, the way he speaks. They've run it through computer checkers and speech checkers and said that he most likely resembles a guy named Dan Held. But there's it'll be this mystery that I don't think ever goes away. By the way, just for anybody here who is a interest in the crypto world, What does Satoshi Nakamoto mean? Anybody know? What does Satoshi Nakamoto mean? It actually has meaning. And when you hear it, you're like, oh man, please tell me that that's not true. I'm not one of these conspiracy theorists, but there is a lot of popular opinion that cryptocurrency, in particular Bitcoin, was created by government. It's what the CIA or NSA or the National Security, NSA. So, and I just totally forgot it. Satoshi Nakamoto, it stands for, I believe, national security. It's backwards. So instead of Satoshi is national, and then Nakamoto is security. Just throwing it out there. Oh no, sorry, Central Intelligence, CIA. So Central is Central Intelligence. So Nakamoto is central, and Satoshi it means intelligence. So CIA maybe behind cryptocurrency. I would put CIA over Craig Wright, who's an absolute clown. Clear thinking. From the stuff I was looking at, because I looked it up, it was Central Intelligence. Hey, KF, there you go. So yeah, don't believe Craig Wright is the founder of Bitcoin. He's a, in my opinion, he's a charlatan. So here's a trading question. Mike says, is there money to be made now shorting these woke pride corporations? If Budweiser is the model, should we be shorting stocks immediately when they start supporting woke trans policies? Well, again, this goes down almost going into the political side of it, but we'll just keep it at a high level saying from a trading perspective. You know, what you're seeing is it's not necessarily woke companies, right? Because there are some companies that you could argue have an extremely liberal followers, and fine, wokeism is there, and that's their product base or their customer base. When you look at Bud Light, you couldn't be further from it, right? No, I hate to sound, I'm going to be stereotypical here, but the stereotype of a Bud Light drinker is a redneck. It's a country guy, country music, drinking my Bud Light, you know, got your twang to your voice. You know, that is the stereotypical customer. That customer is probably going to be much more rebellious and going out on a limb and saying, I'm going to boycott this product, than somebody who, you know, is hippy-skippy using different products that are already aligned with that type of inclusion. And again, I'm not saying good or bad about it. It's just got to know your customer base when you make these types of decisions. So, Mike, I would say that if you see a company that has a specific target demographic, then yes, there's probably opportunity. So let me ask you guys this. Let me know what you think. If I'm trying to pick, let's say if Lululemon, right? Lululemon came out and was all about, did a commercial embracing transgender. Better or worse, don't say whether you love it or hate it, doesn't matter to me. But do you think there would be as much backlash with Lululemon as there would be with Bud Light? And the reason I bring that up is if Mike is going to look out there for companies that have a transgender ad campaign or promoting in that area, I don't believe that it necessarily means it's going to crash right away, that there's going to be rebellion. Because I would contend that the Lululemon crowd is more like, whatever, fine, we don't care, no big deal. But the Bud Light one is probably the most extreme example of a business that I could say would probably rebel against wokeism. Maybe Ford or Chevrolet might hurt themselves as well, especially when you look at their target with trucks. I don't know. In my mind, I think there's some companies that wouldn't really suffer from it. That said, I have a good friend of mine who I had a conversation with him this weekend, and he went through and he said, I went to find AB InBev as the parent company for Budweiser. And I wrote down all those brands, and I'll never buy one of their brands ever again. And he's like, I'm not going to shop at Target. I'm not going to go to a Dodgers game, because he's just making all this whole list of businesses that he won't support, because for him, it's unacceptable to do anything in that venue. And I get that. Yeah, right? Chick-fil-A, which is interesting because Chick-fil-A is historically extremely conservative. I don't know. It's a very weird time. Lulu already sided with criminals over... Yeah, true, right? Boy, that was a rough one. Lululemon, what are you thinking? So anyway, to answer your question in a roundabout way, I think that there is opportunity to the downside on some of these companies. And again, I think Budweiser still has some downside move to go. I took a shot at the 55 strike price, but I will tell you, I will probably go after it again. Let's see what Budweiser looks like right now. BUD. Oops, BUD. Here's Anheuser-Busch. I mean, just got clobbered. It's funny because yesterday kind of finished right in my zone where I expected it to stop and turn around, and then today just cratered even lower. So, is this pain point done? Probably not, right? Probably not. There are a lot of unfilled gaps on here. Like, I don't really think it's going to get down to 47, but it could, right? The backlash to Bud has been just crazy. I was out doing some day drinking this weekend in Huntington Beach, and there was actually people there. She would read off the different beers. Oh, we've got this, and they're like, oh yeah, I don't want to drink no Bud Light. And I asked the one waitress, I was like, how are Bud Light sales? She says they're just dying, absolutely dying. I was like, wow, crazy to think it was like that. All right, Jordan, the wokester companies would be fine so long as you have your stops. I agree, Tom. If you believe that that's going to be detrimental to that business, then take the shot. Right? If you think that's going to happen, then take the shot, but just be ready to be proven wrong. Right? Ready to admit that you're wrong and move on that particular trade. Let's see. Isn't that woke right cancel culture? I don't know if it's necessarily the woke right cancel culture. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't really follow the woke movement or the wokes whatever or cancel culture. I think it's all a bit overdone and really annoying in my mind. We all have our opinions about the way that things should be, and they're entitled to it. But I think the woke culture should probably be stopped. It's like getting a little too much. Like I said, just look at San Francisco. You look at San Francisco, you can't prosecute shoplifters. You can't call the police because they're not going to show up. You can't take the law in your own hands. So you have businesses leaving in droves. And I'm telling you what, in a few years, that city may go bankrupt. And really, it would be crazy to see it, but the city is probably going to go bankrupt because business is leaving. You have no tax revenue coming in. You can't pay your infrastructure. It's just going to get progressively worse. So, maybe I'll save up and in a few years look to buy something in San Francisco when the tides change and people realize they need to swap out their government up there. Plato says, do you expect gold and silver to drop once the deal is officially passed? Feels like the rise today could be a bull trap, especially with the rate hike possibly. Well, I'm still long-term bullish on silver and on gold, and I will continue to. I don't really see any major reason why this would want to dump. Now, typically, we know gold and silver, that flight to security, and you notice we still have this nice uptrend here. We still have a nice uptrend there with these, so I'm still bullish on it. Do we get a drop because of the debt ceiling signing? I don't necessarily think so. If we do, I've got a little zone on gold where I'd actually look to be buying back into this trend. That's that yellow box on my screen between the prices of 1890 and 1919. But I don't think it's going to be that dramatic. I still think that there is a concern about the liquidity of the United States, about the debt that's being incurred, and I think that over the long haul, people will start going more towards tangible assets like gold and silver and other precious metals. So long term, I'm okay and bullish on it. So I've got a bunch of silver right now. I will probably add to my position and continue to sell calls against it just to generate extra premium and income. Sounds like San Fran is canceling its. I agree. Liz, at one point they were like fighting this defund the police movement. They defund the police. It's like, there's always going to be bad examples of any profession. And yes, the media highlights cops who do bad things. Unfortunately, they don't highlight the cops who do good things. And the vast majority of cops are probably pretty good people trying to uphold the laws that we have put into place. So to defund the police, I think is a silly move, especially in a city where you have just total lawlessness. You need police enforcement there to get this under control. If you're a business owner, what do you do when a flash mob of 18-year-old kids comes running in your business and steals everything? If you can't do anything, then why even be in business? Because if I'm a kid, I hate to say this, if I was in my teens and not going to get prosecuted, I would probably, I wouldn't do it because of morality. I just can't do it as a person. But just think of the younger generation right now. Okay, I want all these things and I can't buy them. So what I'll do is I will get on an app and I'll tell it to all my friends in school, hey, everybody meet us at the Nordstrom's rack over here at South Coast Plaza. Meet us, be there, and at 3 p.m. on the dot, that's when we all just bolt in the store and grab everything you can and just everybody go different directions. I mean, what else are you going to do? you can't fight it. So I don't know. I think the businesses are going to start to change here, where it's like they're going to let one person at a time, two people at a time, and control it. Don't get me started. I'm married to a former law enforcement officer. All right, Liz. I won't. You guys get me all riled up sometimes. Anyway, Mike, I've been dancing around your issue and probably got way more political than I even wanted to. But is there money to be made in these companies? I think that there is. I think there certainly will be some swings in these companies based off their positioning of their wokeness and how intense they get. And if they double down on it, right? Some of these companies just seem to be going right back at it, like, no, we're fine. We'll do more of it. Like, all right. We've had this throughout history where certain marketing campaigns for companies have created all sorts of uproar in the industry, and I think this is just that type of ad campaign for our generation right now. If you're a business owner in San Francisco, the cost of insurance must be, I wouldn't even want to look at that. It's probably so expensive that businesses don't have it, and then it's even worse. What tactic do you think government will use to convince people it's safe to convert to a digital dollar going forward and that fiat currency is bad? I don't think it's going to be a tactic, Dwight. I think it's just going to be a slow evolution. How many of you have gone to a store and there was a sign that says, due to the coin shortage, we no longer make change? I mean, that's happened to me in multiple stores around here. Like, there's no coin shortage. They're still making coins. But I think that's one of those first attempts to like push you out of using a fiat currency. Get out of the change, because the change is really expensive, right? Just it's all the metal and all that stuff. Manufacturing. Now, once they get you out of change, you're using more credit cards. And all of a sudden they'll slowly transition out. Oh, sorry, we can't break $20 bills today. We don't have anything. So you have to use your credit card. And then they'll push us into a digital asset, and then it'll all be done. So I don't think that they're going to convince you of it. It's just going to be a natural thing that happens, right? A slow assimilation into a digital currency world. Oh, wow, you guys are going crazy here. What do we got? That's why Walmart left Chicago. Honestly, I would as well. And it sucks because Walmart's going to lose a lot of money by leaving Chicago, but it makes a statement to those cities. And what's going to happen there, right? They're going to lose millions of dollars worth of tax revenue from these businesses, and it's just going to make a much, much worse situation. Every star. So for all the questions about any thoughts on how the Fed now could affect PayPal is super low right now, but the Fed now and Apple Pay are serious concerns, worth bottom fishing. I thought PayPal was, but I actually was going through this one myself. Like, okay, do I look at buying PayPal? I've got this drawn out as a descending triangle on here, and it's looking pretty darn ugly for PayPal. I like PayPal. I use PayPal, but I can't argue this trend. So could it be, a decent buy down here? It could, but I'm just going off that bigger picture trend, and I still think there's more downside movement, unfortunately. So I don't think when we get to the point of a CBDC that there will be a need for things like PayPal. I think what will happen is it's slowly going to push out some of these businesses that are current payment networks. What you'll probably have is your payment networks will be set up by your bank. So if you're a Chase customer, you'll have an app that you just pay with your Chase wallet. Just scan everything, and whatever's connected to your Fed account will be the one that you're paying with. And it's going to be all digital dollars. So I think that you'll see a transition of businesses here, and that may be why this is taking so long, is figuring out, how do we actually implement this? Because it's going to be a disruptor of some businesses out there. And when that happens, we might want to look at something like PayPal as a potential short opportunity, or other publicly traded payment networks, because you won't really need them anymore. You'll have the Fed's digital app, and it'll all be simple that way. Let's see. What else we got? Places don't get my business. Cash is still legal tender. I try to use cash when I can, but you know what? I'm pushing myself more and more to use credit cards for every single thing I do, because I get points and miles. Speaking of which, I got to call my buddy and get him on the program. Josh. All right, I'll reach out to him right after the show today. What time we got? Oh, don't even think about it. You guys going to get me to an hour. Because of our... All right. Yeah, I didn't see anything really bad about the theft ones, but I have seen videos of Walmart's being just, doors kicked in. Target particularly seems to be just getting annihilated. Anyway, let me run through your economic calendar and earnings for tomorrow. So real quick, let me bring up your Forex because I did not include that into the slides for today. So we'll go to Forex Factory, look at the calendar. I'll scroll down since it is June 1st tomorrow. Hallelujah. June 1st, for the U.S., we do have quite a few announcements. ADP non-farm employment change. That's an hour and 15 before the markets open. You have unemployment claims an hour before the markets open, as well as non-farm productivity, unit labor cost. Let me make this bigger so you guys can see. Oh, look at that. That's nice. Nice and big. Oh, doesn't get much bigger than that. So there is your U.S. stuff. You also have Harker speaking from the FOMC at 10 a.m. Pacific time. You got crude oil inventories, natural gas storage, construction spending. You have quite a bit going on for your Thursday session. Wow, that's a very busy Thursday. And then on your earnings front, which I do not have available for you right now either because I was slacking and dropped the ball. Yeah, Liz, absolutely love those travel points. Hope to do some traveling with them soon. Speaking of Lululemon, their earnings come out after market close tomorrow. So see how their earnings perform. You've got Lululemon, Aurora Cannabis, but again, Aurora has been just supposed to report every week and they haven't, so I'll just kind of block that one out. But you have Macy's, you've got Broadcom. That will be... Do I do it? Oh, good. I'm going to do it. That's going to be your popcorn trade of the day. I know we haven't had one in a while, but AVGO, Broadcom, even though it's had a wild ride over the past few weeks, it is a popcorn trade of the day because its share price is so damn high, and they're in the chip making space, and they're doing AI. Remember, Broadcom has the Snapdragon, I think it's a Snapdragon chip, which has been used in a lot of mobile devices. It's a very powerful chip, and maybe that'll start to expand into AI. I'm sure that's going to come up in the conference call, so that will be a very interesting earnings call there. Japan? I don't know. I think maybe I'll go to Thailand. I don't know. Although I think Liz Elisa was just in Japan. I'm going to get some pointers there from that. I know someone who loves ramen, so I don't know if I want to go to Japan. I might gain way too much weight eating ramen while I'm there. So here's your Broadcom. That's your chart. Huge move up. It shot up to 920. And just to put this into perspective, guys, just 2 weeks ago on May 9th, this thing was $600. It's jumped 50% all the way up to $900 on Broadcom. Unbelievable. I used to have, I think it was Lisa. Sorry, Liz. I think I held a big position this years ago, and I sold out for a small profit, kicking myself on that one. Look at that. Let's look at the weekly on this bad boy. Broadcom just crushing it, predominantly because of that Snapdragon chip. And look at this chart since 2010. Crazy. Down at $12 and just hit 900. Ay. Anyway, keep an eye on that one for earnings. I'm not going to be touching this one because I think it's already ran up too much. It's had just a gigantic run and maybe overpriced. So I will watch this one and call it a popcorn trade of the day because there will be some excitement ones there when they roll out their earnings. I love pizza, but I'm not going to Italy for it. Oh, Mark, I'm telling you, it will ruin your life if you have pizza in Napoli. Now, if you go to Napoli, Italian pizza is fine. It's good, whatever, no big deal. When you go to Napoli, there's two pizzerias that are world famous. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I walked into this pizzeria, and in Italy, you don't get a pizza to share with the table. Like I remember as a kid, we just order this giant pizza and you each take a slice and call it a day. In Italy, you each order your own pizza. So I ordered one by myself, and it was this, maybe a 12-inch steering wheel looking thing. It was the most delicious pizza I've ever had in my life. It was so unbelievably good that eating pizza here in the States it's just not the same anymore. It just doesn't taste as good. Now, Napoli has purity laws where the tomatoes have to come from Napoli, the cheese, like everything has to come from specific areas. And similar to that, you have, beer from Munich. The beer at Oktoberfest tastes so much better than any beer I've had in the United States because the purity laws. Water has to come from a certain location, the barley has to come from a certain location, and by controlling all that stuff makes it very, very, very delicious. Anyway, now I'm going to go have a beer right now. Got me all, it's Wednesday. No, not too much planned. Oh, I have a meeting coming up here soon. So I'm going to wrap up the show before I go 1 hour and Big Eb gloats about getting into a 1 hour show. So if you guys have comments, questions, feedback, let me know. TraderMerlin@gmail.com. For tomorrow, I am having John Rowland on the program, and we're going to talk about the Powell hammer. Jerome Powell hammer, make it sound nice and ominous. It's a pattern that he's found, works in all asset classes. He says it's extremely powerful. I've looked at his documentation, actually pretty darn good as well. So we'll talk with John Rowland tomorrow about the Powell hammer, and of course, whatever questions you guys have, feel free to send those on in at TraderMerlin@gmail.com or put them down below the YouTube video. As you know, I check those and add them to the show as well. That said, thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoyed today. I will see you all tomorrow with John Rowland. Take care.